Hello everyone and welcome to part 2 of ManageEngine's free training session on Network Configuration Manager. So this is the agenda for today's session. We'll be covering configlets and its uses, compliance, role-based access control, schedules, reports, NCM's new feature, programmable configlets, and finally we'll talk about the various integrations of Network Configuration Manager. Let's begin with our first topic, configlets. So what are configlets? Configlets are executable configuration or script templates that can be used to push commands to multiple devices for bulk execution or troubleshooting purposes. So what are the configlets used for? Configlets are primarily used for troubleshooting faulty network devices, pushing new configurations, modifying configurations on multiple devices simultaneously. For example, let's say a user wants to enable a version SNMP version 3 or configure it on a set of devices. Without an automation tool, the user would have to log into each device using tools like PuTTY or Telnet to configure SNMP version 3. This process would be very tedious and nearly impossible in a large network infrastructure with many devices. Instead, by using configlets, the user can push the enable SNMP v3 command to any number of devices with a single click. So this not only saves time, but also reduces the manual workload for network administrators. So how do you add configlets in Network Configuration Manager? There are three execution modes for adding configlets. One is the script execution mode, the advanced script execution mode, and file transfer mode. In the upcoming slides, we'll look at each of these execution modes in detail, starting with script execution mode. In script execution mode, commands are executed sequentially on the selected devices. This mode is suitable for simple commands such as enabling or disabling SNMP on multiple devices. So on the screen, you can see an example of script execution mode. On the left, it's shown in black as it would appear in PuTTY, and on the right, it is displayed in the configured content area of Network Configuration Manager. So let me show you how this works in the Network Configuration Manager UI. So this is how the Network Configuration Manager UI looks. First, let's go to Config Automation tab and click on Configlets. So as you can see right here, Network Configuration Manager supports CLI configlets, REST configlets, and also programmable configlets. So for REST configlets, we support vendors like Palo Alto, Fortinet, Aruba, and we are also working on adding more in the future. So now moving on to CLI configlets, let's start by showing you how to add a configlet from scratch. Then we'll look at the examples of three execution modes. To add a new configlet, just click on the plus symbol and you will need to provide a name for the configlet. Select the execution mode. You have a few options here. Choose the vendor and add a description to explain the configlet's purpose. Then enter the configlet content in this provided configlet content space. Now, if you want Network Configuration Manager to perform a backup before configlet execution or after executing this template, you can just check these boxes. And after that, you can just click on Save. And after clicking on Save, your configlet will appear on the screen. And from here, you can either execute it immediately, schedule it for later, or delete it if needed. Now let's walk through an example of script execution mode. So now let's take a look at the enable SNMP version 1 and version 2 for Cisco devices. So as you can see right here, the name is set, the execution mode is selected as script execution mode, and the vendor is chosen as Cisco since we're targeting only Cisco devices. The configlet content is provided here, including the settings like the read community and the read write community. The backup option is checked. So Network Configuration Manager will backup before and after executing this template. So after hitting save, so as I mentioned earlier, from this screen, you can either choose to execute it, schedule it, or even delete it. To execute, simply just click on execute and you'll see the configlet name, the execution mode, the vendor listed, and allowing you to double check that all the details match your setup. Here you can also select the template variables, whether you want to apply the same value for all devices or a different value for each device. You can also provide the read-only and the write-only community values over here. I'll talk about this in more detail in the slides about configlet execution. So now under the device tab, you can either select a device group such as let's say a Cisco group, or you can also select individual devices. You can just select the devices that you want and then click on right arrow. So since we have selected Cisco devices, there's also a Cisco devices tab over here. So choose the specific Cisco device you need and then click on execute. The configlet will then run for the selected devices, enabling SNMP for them. So that's a quick example of how to use the script execution mode command. Now, before moving on to the next execution mode at CLI configlets, let's take a look at the NCM's new feature, which is the programmable configlets. So what exactly are these programmable configlets and how are they different from the regular configlets? So programmable configlets are nothing but they use dynamic logic and conditional loops and variables inside the configlets. So how can this help you? Let's say, for an example, you want to update firmware on certain device vendors or models, or run compliance check and automate remediation on specific devices. For doing that, this programmable configlets feature will help you automate it easily. And you can also loop the conditions that you provide in the configlets. So what it will do is it will just keep on looping the conditions that you've provided. So you don't have to write a lot of command lines for this. So now let's take an example and see how this works in the network configuration manager. So let's go to Cisco firmware upgrade. So as you can see right here, this programmable configlet is used to update the firmware in Cisco devices. You can select to execute this configlet in a single device or multiple devices. And then if you click on next, you can choose to perform conditional logic on configlets using the user-defined parameters. And you can also select the regex pattern, and you can also hide the variables using this. So these options allow you to perform conditional logic to configlets and perform complex network configuration tasks. So this is about it for the programmable configlets. Now let's take a look at the next execution mode in the configlet section, which is the advanced script execution mode. So this mode is used for specific scenarios, such as when a prompt changes occur after command execution, when user confirmation commands require a yes or no, when command execution should stop if there is an error midway, or if there is a need to change the execution flow. Essentially, advanced script execution mode is ideal for handling these more complex requirements. So let's take a look at an example of an advanced script execution mode. On the left, you will see the telnet output, and on the right, you will see the configlet content as it appears in the Network Configuration Manager's UI. Let me walk you through an example in the UI. So in this example, we'll update the host name of all Cisco devices managed in Network Configuration Manager. As you can see right here, the name is already provided, and the execution mode is set to advanced script execution mode. And the vendor is selected as Cisco since this configlet is specifically for Cisco devices. The description explains that it updates the host name for Cisco devices, and the configlet content is listed below. The commands are provided in a sequential order 1, 2, and 3, and they will be executed in that particular order. If you want to backup before and after the execution, you can check these boxes. And once everything is set up, you can just click on save. And after saving, you have the same 3 options, which is the execute, schedule, or delete. Previously, I showed you how to execute a configlet immediately. This time, let's explore the schedule option. So this, after clicking on schedule, you can just provide a name for the schedule and choose the configlets as the schedule type. Yeah. And next, choose the vendor, which is the Cisco in our case, and select the configlets that you've created and ensure that the execution mode is set correctly and check if the backup option is needed. You can also choose to export the report file, which is in PDF, CSV, or text. Finally, you can set the schedule for this particular configure. So I'll cover this functionality, the schedule functionality in more detail in the upcoming slides. Now let's talk about the configlets workflow. So as seen in the earlier example, commands are executed in a specific sequence. So this functionality is supported only in the advanced script execution mode. Configlets within the network configuration manager. Here you can set the sequence and define conditions such as success and failure to control the flow of the execution. So this is the configlets workflow. Let me show you an example of the configlets workflow in the UI. So in this example, we are going to update the Cisco iOS firmware, which is the example that I showed you for the programmable configlets as well. So in the configlet content area, you'll see a series of sequential steps with conditions for success and failure. So here's how it works. When the configlet is executed, it follows a sequence. If the condition is met, it proceeds to the next step, example step 6, 7, 8, and 9, and continues until it reaches the exit point. If there is a failure, the execution stops immediately, and the next step is not executed. So this is how the workflow operates in Network Configuration Manager, specifically in advanced script execution mode. All right, the final mode for executing configlets is the file transfer mode. You can push an entire configuration, whether it's a running configuration, startup configuration, or both, to selected devices at once. Let me show you how this works in the UI. So here's an example of file transfer for Cisco devices. As you can see, a complete configuration has been pasted into the content area. So once you've added the configuration, you can just click on save. And as I said before, you can choose to execute, schedule, or delete. So this is how the file transfer mode works in the Network Configuration Manager. So why use configlets? These configlets modes can be used to automate repetitive network configuration tasks, such as updating device settings, applying security policies, deploying firmware updates across devices. By using configlets, network admins can easily manage large-scale networks, ensure uniform configurations, and quickly implement changes without manually configuring each device. Now moving on to the next topic, which is the configlet execution. Remember when we discussed the template variable selection earlier? So this is where you decide to use the same value for all devices or different value for each device. This feature is helpful when some devices need unique details, such as interface ranges or host names. Let's see this in action. So we'll use the same example that we've used before, which is enabling the SNMP version 1 and 2. So as you can see, we can provide the click on execute. So as you can see, you can provide the read-only and the read-write community over here. So once this configuration is saved, you can just click on execute. And if all the devices require the same value, you can just select the same value for all devices and then enter the values. This will apply to all devices. If different devices require unique values, you can choose the different value for each device and upload a file in the specified format. So once uploaded, you can click on preview and then click on execute. The details in the file will be applied to each device accordingly. So there's also an option called use first row values for all. So when you check this box, the value in the first row of your file will apply to all devices. So here's an example shown in the slide. On the left, you see different values for each device, example, unique host names. And on the right, the first use first row value for all box is checked. In this case, the value from the first row, like the host name, is applied to all devices. So this is how the configlet execution works with different values for each device. Now let's move on to the next topic, which is the two-factor configlet authentication. So this is a new feature we've recently developed in Network Configuration Manager. If you have enabled two-factor authentication, you will receive a TOTP, which is a time-based one-time password in your authenticator app. Only after entering this TOTP will you be able to execute the configlet. This feature adds an extra layer of security authentication. If two-factor authentication is enabled, this step will be required for executing any configlet. This feature, configlet execution, is used for automating the application of configuration changes across multiple devices in a controlled and efficient manner. So that covers everything about configlets in NCM. If you have any questions about today's session, please feel free to raise them in the chat panel. We have a dedicated panelist to answer all your queries. Also, if you have joined late, no worries. This presentation and the recording will be sent to your email in a couple of days. So, and if you'd like a free personalized demo of the product, our panelists will enable a poll shortly. Just choose yes, and we'll help you set up Network Configuration Manager for your enterprise. So if you'd like a personalized demo of a product, our panelists will enable a poll shortly. You can just choose yes, and our product experts will help you set up Network Configuration Manager for your enterprise. All right, now let's move on to the second topic of the session, which is the compliance. So why is compliance important, and why do you need to adhere to certain policies? Compliance is crucial to avoid security vulnerabilities or loopholes in your network environment. It's also mandatory, and non-compliance can lead to legal consequences. Some of the default policies supported in Network Configuration Manager include SIS benchmarks, SOCs, HIPAA, and PCI DSS. You can also create your own policies based on your specific requirements from scratch. To create a custom policy, you first need to create a custom rule, then group these rules into rule groups, and finally, these rule groups are associated as policies. After creating and applying a policy to devices, NCM will run a compliance check to see if the devices adhere to the policies. If not, a violation is triggered. So there are two ways to create a custom rule. You can either clone an existing rule or add a new one from scratch. There are three criteria for adding a compliance rule from scratch. One is the simple criteria, advanced criteria, and advanced custom criteria. In the upcoming slides, we'll dive deeper into these criteria. So let's start with simple criteria. So here during NCM's compliance check, you can select options like what should and should not be contained, and whether it should be an exact set or not, and specify the number of times it must appear in a device's configuration. Let me show you this in the UI. We have a separate tab for compliance. So you can just click on it and you'll see all the policies that are currently available in NCM. Both the default policies and the ones that you create from scratch will be displayed over here. And you can see the number of compliance devices and the devices under violation and the missing data as well. So from here, you can run a compliance check. Just click on this and you can run a compliance check as well. So let me show you how to create rules from scratch. To do that, just go to the rules and you'll see all the existing rules that are present over here. To create a new one, you can just click on the plus symbol and you can choose any criteria that you want, simple criteria, advanced criteria, or advanced custom criteria, and provide the conditions and lines. And then you can associate this rule to a rule group and proceed with the policy. So this will be clearer with an example. Let me show you one for the simple criteria. So here's an example of a simple criteria rule where the public community shouldn't be present. We've set the condition as should not contain any line and specified any number of times. So for instance, we have provided SNNT community public RO and SNNT community public RW in this area. So during the compliance check, NCM will check if these two lines are present in the configurations of the devices associated with this rule. If these rules are present, the rule is in violation and you need to remediate the rule to achieve compliance. Otherwise, if the rule is satisfied, it means the rule is compliant and you can leave it as it is. So you can just click on next and here you can provide the rule name, a short description for the rule's purpose, select the violation severity, whether it should be critical, warning, or major. You can also select remediation configlet. So for example, we have created a no SNMP public remediation configlet. As you know, configlets are script templates. So whenever this rule becomes a violation, you can use this remediation configlet and execute it anytime. It's always good to create a remediation configlet while creating a rule from scratch. And then you can just click on save and your rule will be saved and shown over here. So the next step is to associate these rules to a rule group. So you can just select the number of rules that you want and click on the hamburger menu in the top right corner and click on associate to rule groups. So you will see the available rules over here. The rules you have selected will appear on the right hand side. And if you want to select other rules, you can just click on and select it from here. Then select the rule groups that you want to associate this to. And then you can just click on save. So that's how you can associate the rules to rule groups. And also that's an example of the simple criteria compliance rule. Now let's talk about the advanced criteria. So in this criteria, you can provide conditions as should contain or should not contain, along with the regular expression pattern. Additionally, you have the options to use and or functions, allowing you to create multiple criteria within a single rule. Let me show you this in the UI. So here is an example of advanced criteria compliance rule. As you can see, the condition is set as should not contain or should contain for specific patterns. There is also another line that uses an or function where it should contain a particular pattern. So here's how it works. During a compliance check, NCM will look for the specific pattern in the configuration file. And if the pattern is not found, it moves on to the next condition. It checks the AND operation and to see if both the patterns are satisfied. And if both of these conditions and conditions should appear only once in the configuration. If any condition appear more than once, the rule will be violated. So once these conditions are satisfied, NCM will mark the test as compliant. So you can just click on next and you can, here you can also select the remediation configlet. You can select the violation severity, provide a rule name and a short description. And once you've done that, you can just click on save. So then you can associate it with the rule groups as shown before. So this is the example of advanced criteria rule. Next, let's talk about the advanced custom criteria. So this is basically a mixture of both simple criteria and advanced criteria. Here you have the option to use the single block criteria as well as the multi-block criteria. You can also use the and or functions, regex patterns, and specify the number of times a patterns must be present. Now let me show you this in the UI. So as you can see right here, this is an advanced custom criteria. We have two options, which is the single line block and the multi-line block. So let's refer to this picture as an example for the compliance role. You can see this particular configuration block starts with an interface and ends with an exclamation mark. So you can specify the configuration block as interface and the configuration block end as exclamation mark. And additionally, we have an additional block criteria, which is set to should not contain shutdown. So what does shutdown mean here? In a network environment, some devices may be in shutdown mode, and it might not be necessary to run a compliance check on these devices. To avoid this, you can provide this option in the advanced custom criteria in the additional block criteria. So here's how this works. If I click on validate and paste the configlet content over here, NCM will check if the configuration block starts with an interface and ends with the exclamation mark. If the condition is satisfied, it will move on to the next criteria to check if the line contains the word shutdown. So in this example shown in the PPT, you can see the word shutdown is present, which means the device is in shutdown mode and it will skip to the next device. If the shutdown mode is not present, it means the router, switch, or device is in running mode. And NCM will proceed to the next condition to check if the description pattern is present in the configuration or not. So let me see if all the conditions are satisfied and the rule is marked as compliant. Otherwise, it throws a violation. So you can just click on next. And you can give the name, the description, the severity, and select the remediation configlet from here, and then click on save. Now, if you want to create a rule group from scratch, you can do so by going to the rule groups tab, click on the plus symbol, provide a rule group name and a description. Then you can select the rules over here and then click on save. So this will associate these rules with the rule group that you've created. So the next step is to associate these rule groups with policies. So here's how you can do it. So select the number of rule groups present on this side, and then click on the hamburger menu on the right hand top and select associate to policies. Here you can select the rule groups you want and the available policies that you want your rule groups to be associated with. And then you can just click on save. So after saving, the rules you've created will be associated with the rule group, and those rule groups will be associated with the policies. The next time NCM runs a policy compliance check, it will check against the rules you have created for or associated with the policy. So if you want to create a policy from scratch, you can also do so by clicking on this and click on the plus symbol. You can provide a policy name and a description. And you can choose the policy violation criteria, such as whether any rule in the policy is violated or only if a critical or a major rule is violated. You can select the criteria for this compliance rule, and you can choose the available rule groups needed for this policy, and you can just click on next. Then you can also select the available devices or the device groups if you want to associate certain devices within this compliance policy, and choose the required device and check the box if you want NCM to run a compliance check immediately after creating the policy. So what this will do is run the compliance check for the selected devices and determine whether they are compliant or not. Then you can just click on save. So that's a detailed overview of creating custom policies, rules and policies in Network Configuration Manager for compliance. So this feature helps network admins automatically detect deviations from desired configurations and take corrective actions, reducing vulnerabilities and maintaining a secure network environment. Before we move on, I'd like to let you know that if you are interested in a more in-depth personalized demo of Network Configuration Manager, you can let us know by answering the poll which our panelist has shared. So our panelist has shared a poll, uh, and if you answer that, you will get a personalized demo of Network Configuration Manager, and our product experts will help you set up Network Configuration Manager for your enterprise. Okay, so moving on to the next topic, which is the remediation configlets. You can create remediation configlets to resolve any non-compliance issues. These remediation configlets can be assigned while creating a rule itself. If a rule is violated, you can simply choose to remediate the specific rule violation immediately using the NCM. Let me show you this in the UI. So as you can see right here, there is a remediation template tab, which contains the remediation, which should contain the remediation configlet. And here there is just one device in violation of this particular rule. So you can just click on the remediation template and the non-compliant devices will be displayed, and you can just click on execute. So after clicking on execute, the remediation template will run on this one device that is not compliant with this rule, and they will become compliant immediately. So that this is why it's a best practice to uh, create a remediation rule while creating a rule. So whenever a rule violation occurs, you can execute it from here anytime that you want. So that is a quick overview of the remediation configlet. So with the help of remediation configlet, network admins can automatically fix non-compliant configurations on network devices when a compliance check identifies deviation. Now let's move on to the compliance reports feature. So the compliance report provides an in-depth information about which devices are compliant and non-compliant, along with the date and time of the last compliance check. Let me show you this in the UI. So go to reports and click on compliance reports. So here you can see a pie chart that represents how many devices are in violation, how many devices are compliant, and how many devices data are not available. It separates the violating devices and the compliant devices into a separate tabular column for better understanding. So you can see the violating devices listed over here, along with the number of critical, major, and warning signs. So you can drill down further to see which policy is not compliant and how many devices are compliant for the particular policy. As you scroll down further, you'll see the device policy violation section. If any remediation template has been created, it will be shown over here. You can just click on that specific remediation template to remediate the rule violations. Also, this report can be exported in various formats like PDF, CSV, or Excel, and it can also be sent via email using the options in the right-hand corner. So the next topic is the role-based access control. So what exactly is role-based access control? Essentially, in a network team, you may have different roles such as senior admin and operators working under them. With the role-based access control, you can assign specific roles to each user or restrict them to specific devices. For example, if user is given an operator role, their access will be limited to the devices assigned to them. They won't have any access to any other devices. If an operator makes any changes to the assigned devices, the admin will immediately receive the notification. The admin can then choose to accept or reject the changes as needed. So let me show you a simple representation of how the role-based access control works. So Now we have an operator who makes changes to the configuration file, and the configuration changes are relevant details are immediately sent to the admin. The admin can then decide to approve or reject the changes from their end. So once the admin makes a decision, an approval or rejection notification is sent to the operator immediately. So this is how the cycle of how role-based access control works in Network Configuration Manager. Let me show you how this works in the UI. So let's go to settings and user management. So as you can see, there are a lot of users present in this tab, and their details are shown over here. To create a new user, you can just click on add user, and you can provide the role, for example, operator, and you can enter a username. For example, let's say Dickinson, and you can provide an email ID. Choose a password. And then you can just click on next. So after creating the user on the next screen, you can assign specific devices to them, or for instance, you can assign only Cisco devices, or you can also assign a specific device groups to them. So you can assign a Cisco router group, then only the Cisco router devices will be accessible to this operator, and no other devices will be available. And once you have selected the group, you can just click on save to confirm. If the user leaves the team or the organization, you can also choose to delete the user from the screen. So now let me show you how an operator makes changes and how the admin receives a notification. So I'll log out from my account, and I will be logging in as Dickinson. What happens is once the operator makes the changes, uh, the changes will be available to the admin, and the admin can just view this from the admin's perspective. So I've logged in as the admin again. You can just click on the bell icon, and here you will be able to see the notifications that are received, uh, and it shows the device changes that are the changes that are made for the devices. And you can just click on show draft, and the admin can review these changes in detail and decide to approve them or reject them, or even execute it directly from here. So this is how the role-based access control works in Network Configuration Manager. So this feature minimizes the risk of unauthorized access or changes to network configuration, enhances security, and ensures accountability through audit controlled access and audit trails. Now let's talk about tags. So tags in Network Configuration Manager are similar to hashtags. You can create a tag for a specific location and assign devices, schedules, configuration compliance policies, and users associated with that location. For example, if you have created a location in Los Angeles, you can create a tag called LA, and by assigning this tag to a specific device, users, and other entities, Only the devices and settings associated with Los Angeles tag will be accessible to those users. Let me show you how this works in the UI. So just go to settings, click on tags. Here you can see a tag that has been already created, which is LA. So you can just click on view and you will see the four devices that are present under this tag. Additionally, you can see the configlets, schedules, compliance policies, change notifications, and the users associated with this tag. So when creating a network user in network configuration manager, you can assign a tag to limit their access to only specific devices associated with the tag. So let me demonstrate. So on this screen, instead of providing access to a device or a device group, you can select the tag and choose the Los Angeles tag and then click on save. So now only the devices under this tag will be accessible to the user. So this is how the tags work in Network Configuration Manager. So this feature helps network admins organize devices, users, and configurations based on specific criteria like location, department, or device type, which in turn simplifies management tasks by enabling network admins to apply actions, policies, and compliance check efficiently to grouped entities, ensuring consistency and reducing administrative overhead. Now let's discuss about custom columns. In Network Configuration Manager, you can create up to 3 custom columns to add more specific information to devices. Let me show you this in the UI. So you can just go to settings and click on device management and click on custom column. So here you can create custom columns such as location, customer, or any other column that you need. And after setting up the columns, you can just click on update. Now, when you check any device in the inventory, you should be able to see the custom column that you have created. And this is how the custom columns are set up and used. These custom columns in Network Configuration Manager allow admins to add specific and user-defined attributes to devices. Now let's discuss the schedules. So Network Configuration Manager offers various scheduling options for different task categories, such as configuration backups, report generation, compliance check, configure execution, device discovery, keeping startup and running configurations in stick, and PCI review. So these scheduling options are particularly useful for tasks that needs to be performed on a daily, weekly, or monthly basis. Since it's impractical for users to remember and manually perform each task regularly, the scheduling feature allows you to set the date and time, and NCM will automatically handle the rest. Let me show you how this works in the UI. So let's go to config automation and click on schedule. So from here, you can click on the plus symbol to create a new schedule. You can enter the schedule name and choose the schedule type, such as configuration backup. You can also select the device group or individual device based on your preference. And then click on next. And under the report notification, you have 2 options, which is the send email or the save report. If you select send email, you need to provide the email addresses, which are separated by commas, and then the email subject. So once the scheduled task is completed, NCM will immediately send the report via email to the specified addresses, allowing you to stay updated on the execution, even outside of business hours. If you prefer not to receive email notifications, you can choose to save report instead. In this case, NCM will save the report and you can view it in the next time you log into Network Configuration Manager. So there are 5 scheduling frequency options available over here. One is the hourly, daily, weekly, and monthly. So based on your needs, you can select the appropriate option and NCM will execute the task at the scheduled time. So this is an overview of the schedule feature in NCM. This scheduling feature in Network Configuration Manager helps automate routine tasks like configuration backups, compliance check, and report generation, ensuring they run consistently at predefined intervals without manual intervention. The next topic is the configuration search. So the configuration search feature is essential for locating a specific string, word, or pattern within a configuration file. For example, if you have a large configuration file with over 1,000 lines, manually scrolling through it to find a particular keyword would be inefficient. Instead, you can use the configuration search option to find any keyword or pattern instantly. Let me show you this in the UI. So you can just click on the magnifying glass, and you can just select the categories, and NCM will search for the specified keyword or pattern across all configuration. If found, it will be listed here, and this is how the configuration search works. Now let's talk about the exclude criteria in Network Configuration Manager. So exclude criteria allows you to specify certain elements that NCM should ignore when detecting changes and triggering alarms. For examples, if you don't want the clock time for a specific date to be considered a change in a configuration file, you can set the criteria to exclude these for a particular device. As a result, NCM will not trigger alarms or show these elements as changes, helping reduce redundant notifications for minor or non-essential updates. Let me show you how to set this up in the UI. So go to automation, config automation, and click on exclude criteria. So in NCM, there are two types of criteria. One is the line exclude and the block exclude criteria. So let's look at an example where the clock time is excluded. So as you can see right here, the criteria for this device type exclude clock and clock time. So after doing that, you can just click on save. For this device, these lines will not be considered as changes in the configuration versions. For block exclude, you can just click on criteria. You can provide, just click on this, and you can provide a template, specify the configuration block start in the block end, and NCM will exclude any changes within this block. You can also add additional conditions like should contain or should not contain, and then click on save. So this is how you exclude criteria in NCM. The next topic is alarms. So alarms are used to immediately notify users of important updates or failures. Let me show you how this works in the UI. So we have a separate alarms tab. Here you can see a list of all the active alarms. In the all alarms tab, there are over 2,000 active alarms currently in NCM. So these alarms are triggered for various events like device configuration changes, backup failures, firmware vulnerabilities, and more. The alarms will pop up immediately, allowing you to see what alarms are present and the details of the events that you've created. So this overview helps you stay informed about critical events in your network. So the next is the show commands feature. The show commands feature in Network Configuration Manager allows you to save frequently used commands as templates. So you don't have to type them manually each time in a terminal. You can execute these commands directly from the NCM interface. Let me show you how this works. So you can just go to settings, device management, and click on show commands. So here you will see a list of the existing show commands. To create a new command, you can just click on add, and you can provide a command alias name, example show version, and enter the command and select the vendor and click on save. To execute a saved command, you can just go to the inventory, click on actions, and then execute, and then click on show command, and choose the desired command from the dropdown. So these results will display directly in the NCM UI without needing a separate telnet session. You can also export the output if needed. So this feature is not limited to show version commands drop-down menu. Other commands like show system, show login, show IP traffic, etc. can also be used. So this is how the show command feature works in NCM. Next up, we have reports. NCM provides various types of reports for audit purposes, such as network reports, configuration reports, vulnerability reports, user reports, and more. Let me show you this in the UI. So let's go to reports. And under network reports, there are specific reports available. In configuration reports, multiple reports are listed. And vulnerability and user reports, related to firmware vulnerabilities like CVEID report and exposed devices report. And other reports, we have end of life, end of sale details reports, and compliance reports. Let me give you an example of hardware inventory report. For example, with the device with the IP address, you can view details like the series, model, OS type, version, serial number, etc. You can filter the report by device group or export it in formats like PDF, CSV, or Excel or email. So another example here is the CVEID report, which provides the details of firmware vulnerabilities, including CVEID's base codes, the number of devices affected, and the patch links. So you can click on the links to access the patch details. So this is an overview of the reports feature in NCM. These reports feature in Network Configuration Manager provide comprehensive insights into network or device configurations, compliance status, vulnerabilities, enabling administrators to make informed decisions, identify issues proactively, and maintain regulatory compliance. Next is the UI of Network Configuration Manager. Network Configuration Manager offers an informative, customizable dashboard that provides a bird's eye view of all the current operations in a widget format. Let me show you this in the UI. So just click on dashboard, and here you can see the running operations in NCM. You can also drag and drop these widgets according to your preference, and you can just click on save. And this dashboard is dynamically and fully customized. So this is the NCM dashboard. Next, we have integrations. NCM supports both in-house and third-party integrations. Let's take a look at the supported third-party integration. Password Manager Pro, a credential vault software that helps manage credentials for multiple devices, especially useful in large networks. Ticketing software integrations with Service Desk Plus, Service Plus Cloud, ServiceNow, and PagerDuty. For example, when a configuration backup fails for a configuration approval request is generated, a ticket is created in Service Desk Plus, and users can manage requests from there. We also have an option to add devices from ServiceNow CMDB to NCM inventory. So these are some of the third-party integrations supported by NCM. Now let's take a look at the authentication supported in NCM. We have the Radius authentication, a client-server protocol that allows users to log into NCM using remote authentication. We have AD authentication, allows users to authenticate within NCM without needing an external identity management. We have SAML authentication, an XML-based standard for exchanging authentication credentials between a service provider and an identity provider, supporting single sign-on. We have the two-factor authentication, which adds an extra layer of security by requiring a TOTP from an authenticator app to log in. Let me show you this in the UI. So you can just go to settings and click on authentication. Here you can see the options for the Radius authentication, AD authentication, SAML authentication, and two-factor authentication. To enable the two-factor authentication, you can just click on enable and set the trusted browser duration and then click on save. If you don't have an authenticator app, you can opt for the email option as well to receive a TOTP via email. So this covers the authentication and NCM. Now let's take a look at the network configuration manager, how network configuration manager can be added as an add-on to different ME products. So number one is Op Manager. Op Manager is a comprehensive network monitoring tool. If you're already using Op Manager, you can add NCM as an add-on to get the combined benefit of monitoring and configuration management within the same UI. And you can also add the network configuration manager as an add-on to NetFlow Analyzer. NetFlow Analyzer is a bandwidth and traffic management tool. And with the help of this, you will have the combined functionality without changing the UI of the NetFlow Analyzer. So thank you all for joining this free training session.